All right, so this morning for DocuSign, we're going to get started in Command. Everything that we do with our transactions should all begin in Command, and we're going to start in Opportunities. Opportunities is the applet where we can manage our sales pipeline and manage those specific transactions. So I'm going to click into Opportunities, which is the icon of the two hands shaking. There we go. Give that a second to load. I'm going to come up to all opportunities so I can see a list of all my opportunities. And here's the one I've made for today's training. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 Main Street, start pots. I have all this information filled out over here. As much of the information that I know at this time, I have over here. If I ever need to edit, I can always click on this pencil icon over here. And then over here, I also have the property address, and I've gone through and I've filled that in as well. The more information I can add in Command in the opportunity, the less information I'm going to have to manually add in DocuSign. DocuSign, one of the benefits of the partnership between Command and DocuSign is that DocuSign will pull in a lot of the information, so that way you don't have to type it in again. And it makes sure that it's consistent across both platforms, so there's minimal opportunity to get anything mixed up. Here within the opportunity, I'm going to click on the Documents tab. I'll give this a second to load as well. One thing I want to point out why this is loading is that today, for our example, we're going to be working on a listing. And the reason I want to work through a listing is because there's a couple extra forms that when you are getting ready to list a property, the seller's property disclosure, community association disclosure, and lead-based paint disclosures that operate in a very unique way versus all of the other forms in DocuSign. So I want to make sure that we have a chance to go through those today as well. But everything else, it's going to be the exact same process, whether you're working with a buyer or a seller. All right, let's refresh this. Right. It's going to be a little extra patient today. Let me try. Let's go home again. See what is going on. Go back to opportunities. All opportunities. Documents. There we go. Perfect. So now I'm in my Documents tab within my opportunity. You'll notice that I don't have my checklist of documents here. To get that, over on the left-hand side where it says pick checklist type, I'm going to click on this drop-down menu and I'm going to select residential. Now you have the option of residential or commercial, but I'm going to guess that 99% of the transactions that you do will be residential. So go ahead and select residential. And now it is going to load the checklist of forms we're going to need. Now, this is not an exhaustive list of forms, but it will let you know which ones are required and which ones are conditional. And so from here, now that we need to get ready, we need to get our documents ready. One thing I do want to point out is that no documents live in Command. All of the documents, all of the GAR forms live in DocuSign. It's just the two systems are connected. And once we're done and we have everything ready to go, we'll upload them here into Command. But to actually have access to the GAR forms, send them for signature, that's all done in DocuSign. So once I have selected residential from the drop-down menu, I have my list of documents. Up here in the top right-hand corner, there's a blue button that says Start a Transaction. Well, I guess it's kind of like a dark bluish color, like a blackish. And we're going to click on that. And it is very important that you click Start a Transaction here within the Documents tab of your opportunity. By clicking Start a Transaction, that is what's going to sync Command to DocuSign. If you do not click Start a Transaction, it will not create a new room for you. And if you create a room directly in DocuSign, which is okay, you will never be able to retroactively connect the opportunity to the room. So it's very important that you click start a transaction. So I'm going to click on that, and it's going to open up another browser tab, and it's going to have me log into DocuSign. Now, one thing I do want to point out is that if you have a pop-up blocker on, it will likely prevent this window from opening up. That's okay. Here in your URL bar, there should be a little box that you can click on, and you can select allow pop-ups from DocuSign and Command. So I'm just going to log in using the account information that I was provided when I joined or that I created within Command. So I'm going to log in here. And this is going to take me directly into my room. Now, up here in the top left-hand corner, I have my room name, which is 1234 Main Street Stark Potts listing. And that's the same name of my opportunity in Command. Here is the address information that was also pulled in from Command. And it pulled in the expected closing date of January 27th, which I had added in Command. Now, when you click start a transaction, it's going to take you directly here to the Documents tab. However, before we actually do anything in the Documents tab, we're going to want to go through into the Details tab and fill out that details information. That detailed information is what's going to pre-populate all of our GAR forms. So we're going to take a quick time out from the normal process. And what I want to do is I want to go through and confirm our NERDS ID number here at this stage. So that way it will allow us access to those GAR forms. This is something you should only have to do one time. The reason I like to do it here at this point is so that way we can get our flow going with all of our information for our transaction, and we don't have to stop to do it. Also, because we're here in the Documents tab, it's super easy to do it right here. So there are two ways that we can confirm your NERDS ID. We can do it right here in the Documents tab and then also in Preferences, and we're going to walk through both of them. So as if this is our very, very first time in DocuSign, up in the top right-hand corner, I'm going to click Add and select DocuSign Forms. And it's going to give me this window of a bunch of logos. I'm going to select the National Association of Realtors. That's where that's why I need my NERDS ID. So I'm going to select the National Association of Realtors. Here it's asking for my NERDS ID, which I do not know off the top of my head. So I'm going to click on the URL here to find your member ID. And I'm going to use my last name and my license number to look that up. And I'm going to highlight this, copy it. I can close this tab, paste. I'm going to type in my last name. Now, one thing you want to be mindful of is you have to use the same last name that you used when you registered for ARA. If you've had a name change since joining, be sure to let ARA know that your name has changed, and that way NAR can update that accordingly, because if there's a discrepancy between the last name of when you registered and the name you're trying to use here, it will not allow you to have access to the GAR forms. Association, I'm going to select the Georgia Association of Realtors from the drop-down menu, and thankfully it is in alphabetical order, and I'm going to click Validate. Now it has let me know that I've validated one association. Now I have this pop-up window here, which shows me all the forms. If this is truly your very first time in DocuSign, you'll get another window before this asking you to accept the terms and conditions of the Georgia Association of Realtors. So now that I see that I have my library down here from all my GAR forms, I know that I now have access to all the GAR forms. Any questions on going through that process of confirming your NERDS ID this way? All right. All right. So I'm going to show you really quickly the second way that you can confirm your NERDS ID. The other way is in Preferences. So in DocuSign, if you click on your initials or your image up here in the top right-hand corner, and then click Preferences, and then over in the left-hand side, I'm going to select Integrations. And I can come down here and click Add Provider. When I click Add Provider, it's going to show me that same pop-up window of all those different logos. And again, I would just click on National Association of Realtors and go through the same exact steps. The likelihood is that you probably won't have to reconfirm your NERDS ID. I just like to show you this way, just in the event that something happens, that for whatever reason, there's a technical glitch and it disconnects your access to NAR. But this is the second way that you can confirm your NERDS ID. You do have to be a member and show that you are a member of the National Association of Realtors for you to have access to the GAR forms. So I'm going to go back to my room really quickly. All right. So now we can stop our timeout and we're going to pick up in the same process of where we were earlier. So we had just clicked Start a Transaction. It opened up a new browser tab. I logged into DocuSign and it takes me here into this Documents tab within my room in DocuSign. Now, my first instinct is gonna be like, oh, I'm here in the Documents tab. Let's go ahead and add a bunch of documents. Don't do that. What we want to do first is go into the Details tab over here on the far left, and we want to fill in as much of the details that we know about the transaction as possible at this time, because it is this information on the Details tab that's going to pre-populate the forms for us, which one is going to save us time, but two, make sure that everything is consistent across all the forms and allow us to send these forms for signature. So this page is laid out in kind of two different types of information. So over here on like the left, I guess 3/4 of the page is going to be all the information about the specific property. So you can see here pulled in the address, or most of the address information, listing details, offer details, bid confirmation, closing details, all of that. So everything that's going to be specific to the property. Over on the right-hand quarter is going to be all the information about the specific parties involved in the transaction. So here is seller one's information, and this was pulled directly out of Command. So this is my client, Tony Stark. It pulled in his name, phone number, email address. Scrolling down, we have seller two. Here's Pepper Potts. And then her email address, which is just my personal email. And then scrolling down, we have listing agent one, which is myself. Here's all of my information. If I were working with another listing agent, I would put his or her information here. And then scrolling down, we get to buyer one, buyer two, buyer agent one, and buyer agent two. Now, one thing I want to point out is that since today we're working with a listing, I'm only going to include the contact information for my clients. I do not recommend sending documents to co-op agents through DocuSign. The way that the system is set up is that unless all parties sign it, a document is never considered complete. And usually when you are working with a co-op agent, you're going to be negotiating. So they likely won't sign it, and it just kind of creates a whole headache. We'll talk about this in a little bit more detail when we get to the envelope, but I just want to preface that. So if you notice here, I don't have any information for buyer one, buyer two, or buyer's agent, because I'm working on the listing side. Now, if I were working with a buyer on this transaction, I would have my buyer's contact information down here, and I would have all of the listing information blank. So now that we know the layout of the Details tab, let's go through and update the information based on what we know at this point in the transaction. We always have the ability to later on come in and add new information and update accordingly. So I'm going to click Edit up here in the top right-hand corner. And with everything in Command or DocuSign, we'll just start at the top of the page and work our way down, filling in the boxes that we know. The name of the room, I'm going to leave that the same. I like that it's the exact same name as my opportunity. It just makes it really simple to keep the two aligned. Local currency, I'm just going to select US dollar. I don't have an MLS ID yet because I haven't actually listed this yet. Origin of lead, company room. Status, I can leave that as is. Our address here. Property type, this is going to be residential detached. This is built, let's do 2008. Special circumstances. Thankfully, there are not any special circumstances or zoning classification or school district. Perfect. Listing details. Let's go ahead. We can list this today on December 20th, and we can let this expire on, let's do February 20th. Original listing amount, we'll do 375. And I'm just going to copy that, and I'm going to paste it into all of these boxes. I don't know why they have it listed so many different ways for the original listing amount, but I just put it in all of them because to make sure that it then gets auto-populated in my listing agreement. Scrolling down. Offer details, I don't have any of that yet because we're just getting ready to list. Same thing with highest bid, closing details, and all of that. So we are good to go with the actual information for the property. So now let's just double check the contact information for the individuals involved in the transaction. So here we have Tony Stark, and I have his phone number and email address. At a minimum, you need to have your client's legal name and email address in DocuSign. I understand that Tony is not a legal name, but for today's purposes, it's just, we'll pretend that it is. But you just need name and email address. Phone number and mailing address is fine. But you just have to have that email address so that way DocuSign has an email to send the forms to for signature. So good to go there with Tony. We'll scroll down, check Pepper. Pepper's name, email address, good to go. We'll go down, check myself. Good to go. Good. Perfect. And then I don't have any co-op listing agent with me. So I am going to go ahead and I'm going to click save in the bottom right-hand corner. So we've updated the details tab of DocuSign. Any questions on anything that we've done or any of the information that we've added to the details tab before we jump in to the documents? All right. Perfect. So now that we have finished updating the details tab, now we can go into the documents tab. So I'm going to click here on documents. And you'll notice here I don't have any documents. It's blank. And I have a room docs folder. Anytime that you add a document in DocuSign, either from the GAR forms, you upload one from your computer, or you receive a signed completed document, it's going to default into the room docs folder. However, I like to organize my folders or my documents within DocuSign in specific folders. Throughout the transaction, you're going to be dealing with tons of documents and sometimes similar documents over and over again, and it can become overwhelming. So if you're able to organize it, it's going to be a lot more helpful. To add to add folders, we're going to click on actions up here in the top right-hand corner and select add folder. And I'm going to set this as my listing agreement folder. Click create. And then I'll create another one here for my binding contract. Perfect. So now I have some organization set up in my room. I do want to point out that you can organize your room as clean or as messy as you like. No one is going to take a look at your DocuSign room. Lynn and Alita are not going to look at it. So just find a process that works best for you and be consistent with that. So now that we have our folder set up, let's start adding some documents. So to add documents, I'm going to click on add up here in the top right-hand corner. Select DocuSign forms, and we're going to get this pop-up window. And there's a fair amount of information here that we're going to talk through. Here on the Browse tab, at the bottom, we have our libraries. And this is going to show us the FMLS forms, the Greater Alabama MLS forms, which I don't know why, and then the Georgia Association of Realtors forms. GAR is where you're going to spend most of your time. This is a list of all 180 GAR forms that you have access to use throughout any transaction. There are a lot of forms. And one thing that is kind of confusing about them is that a lot of the forms have the same name or similar names. So if I type in seller's property, so I want the seller's property disclosure, you can see I now have 4 versions of this. And I have to pay very close attention to which form it is that I need. So we have a condo, land lot, new construction, and then our traditional resale single family or resale detached home. So I'm more embarrassed than, it's kind of embarrassing, but I have more times than I care to admit, accidentally selected the incorrect version just because I was in a rush and I was like, have to get these documents to my clients. So you do want to be mindful that you make sure that you select the right one. You also notice that at the end of each form name is a number. So there's F304, F307, F310, F301. You can use that specific form number to find the exact document that you want. So if we want F301, it's just going to pull up that one specific seller's property disclosure form. Now, that being said, to kind of ease some of the stress, especially when we're in a tight timeline, I have created these groups up here of forms. And this is going to be, we have a buyer's packet and a seller's packet. And this is going to be where you can come to find a majority of the forms that you are going to use when working with either a buyer or a seller. It is not an exhaustive list, but I would say it's probably going to account for about 85% of the forms that you are likely to use when working with on either side of a transaction. So you can come here and click on seller's packet. And it's going to be a list, like 20 forms. So it's a lot easier to manage. So now let's start adding forms. So we need our listing agreement form. So we're going to select that. We need our community association disclosure. We need our seller's property disclosure. Perfect. So it lets me know that I've selected 3 forms up here. Since the home was built in 2008, we do not need the lead-based paint exhibit, but that's going to be the same process as the CAD and SPD. Now, in addition to these forms, great, 2 questions. So the listing agreement comes with a required that, no, that is something that should pop up for you as well. For F101, yeah, so it should show you that it's required because to have a listing, you have to have a listing agreement. And then another question, will the newest forms update to the groups? Correct, yes. So when the 2023 forms come out, they should automatically just repopulate into those groups. And I'll be sure to check that as those are released. So in addition to our listing agreement, our listing documents, let's pull in our purchase and sale. Because I know that traditionally when working on a listing, you're not going to be the one to originate a purchase and sale, but it's probably going to be one of the most important documents that we will work with in our real estate career. So I want to talk through that. So I'm just going to come up here to buyer's packet. And let's find the purchase and sale agreement. Here we go, F201. So I'm going to select that. So up here, it says selected 4 documents, shows me which 4 I have. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click add selected. And now it's going to add those 4 documents into my room docs folder in DocuSign. Now I want to organize these documents into their respective folders. And there's 2 ways that you can move documents in DocuSign. The first way is you can roll your mouse over the document icon, click your mouse down, and then just drag it into the desired folder. Super easy. So here we go. Here's my binding document, purchase and sale up there. So that's the first way that you can do it. The next way is that you can check the document icon. And then whenever you select that document, you will get a toolbar up here, and you can roll your mouse over the different icons, and I'll let you know what each icon is. I'm going to select move. I'm going to select a destination, folder, and current room. And then I'm going to select the folder that I want to use, click move. And now we have all of our documents in the correct folders. Pretty easy. And then anytime that we have those any new documents that come into the room docs folders, we can just do the same thing. So now that we've gone through, we've added our documents, we've searched through the GAR library and our buyers and sellers packets. Let's start updating forms. So we're going to start with our listing agreement. So I'm going to click on exclusive seller listing agreement. All right, and just like everything we've done so far, we'll start at the top and work our way down, filling in the information. So we can see here some of the information about the property address has been added. That is because we filled it in on the details tab, so that is great. I am missing a tax parcel ID, so I would just get that from the tax records. And for today, I'm just going to make up a tax ID number. Below here, legal description, we have a couple different options. It is recommended that you use option 1 attached as an exhibit here too. If you do not have, if you are not able to find the legal description or the warranty deed from tax records, please reach out to one of our alliance partners, Campbell and Brandon, McManamy, McLeod and Heller, and McMichael and Gray. They will all be able to quickly provide you with that legal description. If you do not want that, you can always use the deed booking page, and you can get that information from usually from the tax records. So go ahead and add that. Scrolling down, we have our list price. So this is pre-populated directly from the details tab. Our date of commencement, so we'll fill that into today's 12/20/22. One thing I do want to point out is that whenever you're adding dates in DocuSign, I recommend that you leave them in numerical format. Do not type out December. I believe the issue has been fixed for a long time now, but when we first started using DocuSign, if you would actually spell out the month, it would create this weird error, and it wouldn't save anything. So I just recommend that moving forward, just put everything in numerical format. It's going to minimize the likelihood of a potentially not working. I don't know. End of date agreement. So we selected 2/20/23. Marketing. So we're going to do FMLS, Georgia MLS, and KWLS. One thing I do want to clarify also with today's training is that this is a training on how to use DocuSign, not necessarily the correct and legal information to fill in on all the forms. Please reach out to Lynn and Alita for any questions on what or our alliance partners on any specific information that goes into these forms. Like here I wouldn't traditionally abbreviate FMLS for my clients, but just for time, I'm gonna do that today. So marketing date, we want this to be listed by 12/21/22, and this will be done within 5 days. And one thing to point out, if you have questions or unsure of what a lot of these fields are, what they mean, within I think it's like the first 2 weeks, or I think second week of January, we're going to have a 2023 GAR contracts CE class that's free from Campbell and Brandon, and I think another one from McManamy. So that way they'll walk through all the different changes and what everything means. And you get 3 hours of CE for it. So would recommend that you take that. Scrolling down. I think we have one scheduled for January 18th, and we're looking to get another one on the calendar as well. All right, so for commissions, I have negotiated 6% as the listing agent, and I agree to share 3% with the buyer's agent. Protected period, 90 days. Relationships not offered. So we do not offer dual agency and sub-agency here. We do not consent to acting as a dual agent. No special circumstances. And seller does authorize the broker to assist in negotiating. So we'll scroll down. We have lots of explanation here. Let me plug in my computer. Okay. Perfect. So now we've gotten down here to section 10, the brochures. The brochures are supplemental information about the real estate process that you can send your clients. It's just some fun reading for them. It's nothing, they don't have to sign it. It's not required, but it is recommended that you send them whatever brochures are going to be most relevant to them. Just as I created the groups for the sellers and buyers packets, I also have created groups for buyers brochures and sellers brochures so that it's easy for you to access them. So today we'll just select this one. So select the ones that you actually want to send them. Scrolling down, exhibits and addenda. So if you have any exhibits that you want to include with this legal or with this listing agreement. So if we had a legal description, we could attach that here. But for today, we don't. Scrolling down, we have our special stipulation. So if there are any additional stipulations that you want to add to this transaction, one stipulation that's kind of common, especially on the listing side, is going ahead and negotiating any price reductions. So if you want to say, rather than having to have the conversation every 3 weeks of reducing the price, you can go ahead and type that in here. And we just make this up as we go along. All parties agree to a $10,000 price reduction every 2 weeks after listing date in the event that that we are not negotiating a contract or under contract. I don't know, this is probably not the best one. I'm just making it up as we go along. But you can just type in whatever stipulations you want. Just keep typing them in here. Super easy. You just type it in. Not a big deal. Over time, you will learn of any stipulations that you like to add. And you'll probably start to use the same ones over and over again with your clients. If you don't have any stipulations, don't worry, that's fine. I usually don't include any stipulations on my listing agreements, but it's all up to you. Scrolling down, if you have a ton of stipulations and you need an additional special stipulations page, you can check this box here and add form F246. All right, scrolling down, we're going to check our client's contact information. So we have seller 1, Tony, email address, Pepper, email address. And now we're going to fill in the missing information for myself here. So office code, KWFA01. Now, I don't know necessarily why all of these fields are not mapped accordingly, but I have to fill them in, no worries. There is a way that if that you can create a form template. So that way, for fields like this that are going to be consistent across every single listing agreement that you use, you can go ahead and set all these to be to autofill. That's kind of more of a DocuSign 2.0, but let me know if you have any questions about that. So once I have all of this information in, just scroll down and make sure I'm not missing anything. And then I'm going to click save and close either down here or in the top right-hand corner. But you have to click save and close. If you just click the X, it won't save anything. So I'm going to click save. There we go. Now we have officially updated our exclusive seller listing agreement. Any questions on what we just walked through with updating the listing agreement before we jump into the other forms? All right. So now let's go through the rest of our listing documents. We'll jump into the seller's property disclosure. So I'm just going to click on that to open it up. And just like we did with the listing agreement, we'll start at the top, work our way down. So we don't have an exhibit letter yet, because this is not a part of a contract. Scrolling down, we don't have an offer date yet. Here's our pre-populated address information, good to go there. Scrolling down, here's everything with the form. But you'll notice that on this form, I don't have any text boxes. I don't have any check boxes. There's nothing for me to do here. That is correct. On the seller's property disclosure, community association disclosure, and the lead-based paint disclosure, us as agents are not allowed to fill out these fields. All of these fields are going to be mapped to seller one. So when I open this form up here, I don't have any places. There are no places for me to fill in. Just know that that is correct. So scrolling down, I do want to double check to make sure that there aren't any fields that I do need to fill in. Scrolling. All right. Perfect. So then we get to the bottom. We have clients' names. Good to go. I don't have to fill in my contact information here. So I'm going to click save and close. So that was pretty easy. And now let's jump into the community association disclosure. So I'm just going to click on that to open it up. All right, and we'll do the same thing, start at the top and work our way down. We don't have an exhibit letter yet because we're not a part of a contract. Offer date, we don't have an offer yet. Here's our pre-populated listing address. And again, same thing. There are not any check boxes on this form, and there are no text fields for me to fill in as the listing agent. All of these fields are mapped to seller one. But again, I just want to double check, make sure that I'm not missing anything. Scrolling down, and we are good to go. Any questions on using the disclosures, adding them before we jump into the purchase and sale agreement? All right. So now let's jump into the purchase and sale agreement. As I mentioned before, I know it's not going to be very common for the listing agent to be the one to originate a purchase and sale agreement, but the process is going to be the exact same, whether it's, working in our listing example today, or if you're working with a buyer. So to update this, I'm just going to click on it to open it up. Give it a second to load. Perfect. And we'll just start at the top, work our way down. So today we have our offer date. So we can we'll select today's date. MLS ID, I'll just make up a number here. I would actually just grab that out of FMLS. Tax parcel ID, just that number I made up earlier. We have our legal description. So we have our deed book and page number. Our list price is $375. But let's say the buyer of this wants to offer $365. And they want $5,000 in closing costs. They want closing to be on, let's do what is 120? Perfect. We'll do on January 20th. So we'll just do 1 month. And this will take possession at closing. Closing firm, we will use Campbell and Brannon, Glenridge office. Phone number, I don't know it, so I'm just going to make up a number here. I would just get that from their website. Holder of earnest money, KWFA. So you can see it's super easy just to click down and fill in the fields as needed. Earnest money will be paid by check. And this will be, now let's do $5,000 within 3 days of binding. Inspection, due diligence. So we are going to negotiate a 10-day due diligence. Lead-based paint. It was not built prior to 1978, so we're good to go here. Brokerage, so seller broker is representing as a client. Perfect. And buyer brokerage, we'll just make this Harry Norman. And they are representing their buyer as a client. Material relationship, so none that I am aware of. And we will give this a time limit offer of 12 p.m. on 12/21/22. So give that 24 hours. There we go. Scrolling down. We'll keep scrolling. Perfect. So now we get to our exhibits and addenda. So here we'll go through and select all of the exhibits that we have attached to this this purchase and sale agreement. So we have our seller's property disclosure. I'm going to make that exhibit A. Then we have community association disclosure, exhibit B. And then traditionally you would have your financing exhibit, legal description, and then whichever, any other different exhibits that you have. So I'm just going to have those two for today. Scrolling down, special stipulation. So again, this would be the same process as what we did on the listing agreement. You can type in any stip that you would like to include, as many as you would like. Lots of room for lots of steps. If you have any questions specifically on how to write a stipulation, please reach out to our alliance partners. They are happy to help you write one that is very clear and that's going to protect you and protect your clients, as well as Lynn and Alita. They'll help you out as well. So you have plenty of resources on how to write a stipulation. There is Alita, if you ever are able to join her Tuesday morning classes, she will teach you, there's kind of like a formula for how to write a stipulation. So if you ever want to get creative and write your own, you can kind of figure out how to do that to make sure that it is a strong stipulation that protects your clients and you. All right, so scrolling down. Perfect. So now we get to our client's contact information. So we have Tony, his email address, Pepper, and her email address. Now, one thing I want to point out is I personally don't like sharing my client's contact information with a co-op agent. It's just a personal preference. And I'm sure that 9 times out of 10, when I'm working with a co-op agent, they're going to be very respectful of the relationship that I have with my clients. However, I also don't want to take the chance and find out that, someone I'm trying to negotiate with is reaching out to my clients behind my back and trying to, do some shady. So I traditionally would not include my client's email address here on the purchase and sale agreement. However, since this field has been pre-populated from the details tab, I cannot change it or delete it on the purchase and sale agreement, because any pre-populated field, if it is any change or deleted characters from that field on any form, will automatically update and make that same change in the details tab. Meaning, so if I were to delete my client's email address here, when I go to send these forms for signature, there wouldn't be an email address to send it to. So I will show you when we get into the envelope how to hide that to protect your client's email address. So great question. Clarification on what a co-op agent is. So co-op agent is just is the cooperating agent. So in this example today, I'm the listing agent, and the co-op agent would be the buyer's agent. So it's whoever the other agent is that you're working with to help facilitate that transaction. You are welcome. All right, so scrolling down. It's going to make sure that all of my information is here, filled in correctly. Now, I mentioned earlier not adding in the co-op agent's information and trying to minimize the potential of sending a document to a co-op agent. I still agree with that. I do not recommend sending any documents to a co-op agent. However, if you were trying to make your offer stand out and you want it to be as strong as possible, please feel free to fill in all of this information from your co-op agent. You can get all of this information from the listing in FMLS or by searching their name or license number in FMLS. It's just one less thing for that co-op agent to have to do, and it could be that little bit of a deciding factor that may help your offer stand out. But for today's example, I'm just going to leave it blank. So everything is good to go here, and I'm going to click Save and Close. All right, so now we have filled in all of our forms. What questions do you have on adding forms from either the GAR library, the sellers or buyers packets, filling out the forms, which information to include, which one to not? Any questions on forms before we jump into setting these for signature? All right, perfect. So now that we have all of our forms, we filled out all the information. Our next step is to send these to our clients for signature. The way that we send documents for signature in DocuSign is through an envelope. And the way that Michael New explained envelopes to me, and I really like the analogy, so I should share it, is that think of envelopes in DocuSign as a manila envelope in real life. That let's say you printed out all of these GAR forms, you've written them in, filled them all in by hand, and then you organize them and put them in a manila envelope on the corner of your desk. Then when you see your clients, you take that manila envelope, you hand it to them and say, please review and sign these forms. DocuSign envelopes is the exact same thing. It's just a way to organize and hand these forms over for them to sign. So the easiest way that we can create an envelope is right here within the Documents tab. And what we're going to do is we're going to check and select the documents that we want to send for signature. So today I want to send all of them. So as I mentioned before, whenever you select a document, this toolbar will appear at the top, and you just roll your mouse over the different icons to find whichever one you want. And then roll our mouse over the pen icon, and it says Create Envelope. So I'm going to click on Create Envelope. Now it's going to ask who we're sending this to. So today we're going to send it to Listing Agent, Seller 1, and Seller 2. Now remember, I do not recommend sending documents to a co-op agent. So through DocuSign, I do not recommend sending documents to co-op agents through DocuSign for signatures. So I'm just going to click Continue. And now it's going to create our envelope. And there's a couple steps we're going to go through for that. Perfect. All right. So here it shows us our 4 forms that we have added. All right. Now, for Solana, we have 2 additional forms that we need to include for our clients to sign. And this is something that we would send to them when we're sending our listing agreement and or our buyer brokerage agreement. And that's going to be the Rawls Group affiliated marketing disclosure and the Rawls Group wire fraud prevention disclosure. We add those forms here in the envelope. And to add those forms, I'm going to click on Upload here, this drop-down menu, and I'm going to select Use a Template. And then I'm going to select Shared with Me. And this is going to pull up a list of all of the templates that the MCA office has shared with me as an agent. We'll give this a second to load. One thing about DocuSign to know is that sometimes it is slow. Usually it's not this slow, but just know that even when it is very slow, it is still working. So try your best to be patient. So you'll see here we have a seller version of our affiliated marketing disclosure, and a buyer version of our affiliated marketing. If I scroll down, we have our buyer wire fraud disclosure. And then we should have seller wire fraud disclosure. These forms are the exact same. So the affiliated marketing disclosures are the same, and the wire fraud are the same, depending on which side of the transaction we're working. But I'm just going to select the seller version because all of my signing fields are going to be mapped to sellers today, since I'm working on the listing. If I were working with a buyer, I would select the buyer version of these documents, the same exact information. It's just the signing fields will be mapped to the buyers. So I'm going to click Add Selected. And now it has added our two documents here. Now, I personally like to have my clients sign documents in a very specific order. I want them to sign my listing agreement, then the seller's property disclosure, then community association disclosure, then the two Rawls Group forms, and then the purchase and sale agreement. So to reorder those documents, I have to do it here at the envelope creation page. So to reorder them, super easy. Just roll your mouse over the document that you want to select, hold your mouse down, and then drag it into the desired position. It is that easy. So I'm going to move my affiliated marketing, my wire fraud. So now I have these in my desired order. If I need to add any additional forms, I can click on the upload here, and I can select to browse my computer, upload from a template, add room documents. This is where you browse would be for your computer. So if you needed to upload any documents that maybe came from the listing or any documents that came directly from the listing agent. All right, so now that we have our documents in our specific order, let's scroll down and we're going to add recipients. Perfect. So we have listing agent, we have myself, we have seller 1, seller 2. Perfect. So you notice here that we have seller 1 and seller 2 that are blank. That is because these are mapped, these are the contacts on the disclosures, the affiliated marketing and wire fraud. Super easy. All I'm going to do here is I'm just going to click on this address book icon right here. I'm going to select room contacts, and I'm going to select Tony Stark as seller 1. I'll do the same thing here for seller 2, address book, room contacts, Pepper Potts. Perfect. Now, there's to the left-hand side of each one of these contacts, you notice there's a little text box and each one says 1. That text box identifies the signing order of these forms. So right now it's set to everyone to be able to sign at the same exact time. However, I like my clients to sign them in a specific order because seller 1 is going to be the one that's responsible for filling in all of the fields on the seller's property disclosure and the community association disclosure. So I want Tony to be able to fill that in. Then I want Pepper to be able to review it, make sure it's all correct, and she can sign it. And then once it's good to go, then I can sign it. To reorder the signing order, just click into that text box and update the number that you want it to be. We'll make Tony number 1, Pepper number 2. All right, and then we'll make Tony number 1, and then Pepper down here, number 2. Now, you'll notice right now we have 2 Tonys and 2 Peppers. Don't worry about that. In just a minute, it's going to ask us to combine those 2. So it'll be fine. All right, now within each one of these recipients boxes, there's a handful of information. Over here, we have this needs to sign and this drop-down menu. This is going to provide the permission that this contact has for this form. So I'm going to click on the drop-down. It's going to default to needs to sign, but here's a handful of different options. In-person signer receives a copy, needs to view, specify recipients, allow to edit, update recipients, and signs with notary. I will say probably 90% of the time you're going to use needs to sign. Another one that you may use somewhat often is receives a copy. And receives a copy just means that they are literally going to receive a copy once it's completed. They don't have anything, they don't have to sign it, they don't have to review it, they don't have to do anything. Receives a copy may be a good tool to use if you need to send documents to a closing attorney or to a lender, and you just need to get them over there as soon as possible. And you can go ahead and set them up to receive a copy. Needs to view is if you have a client that there's another party that actually needs to physically go through and read the document before it is good to go. You would select needs to view. Now, just note the difference between receives a copy and needs to view is that receives a copy, they have no responsibility. They don't need to do anything. If someone has a needs to view responsibility, that means they physically have to go through and click through each page of the DocuSign form and click complete in order for their stage to be complete. But more than likely needs to sign, you'll be good to go. To the right of that, we have a customized drop-down menu with a couple options here. The first is add access code. So if you have a client that is uncomfortable with e-signing, maybe they're afraid someone's going to hack into their email address and it's going to start signing all these DocuSign forms on their behalf. And then before they know it, they are under contract on a house I didn't even know about. We can add this access code, which provides another level of security. So you can just click add access code, and then you can just type in, whatever code you want. So I would say, hey, Tony, and I would probably give him a call and be like, hey, I'm about to send over these DocuSign forms, but go ahead and write down this access code of 12345. And DocuSign is going to ask you for this code before you're allowed to go through and sign. And that way, he doesn't have to worry about someone hacking into his email. I don't actually want to use that today, so I'm going to trash that. And then the next option we have is add a private message. So I want to send a private message to just Tony. And I'm going to say, hi, Tony. Please be sure to fill in all of the fields on the seller's property disclosure and community association disclosure. Thank you, Nick. Now, since Tony is seller one, he's going to be the one that's responsible for filling in those disclosures. I just wanted to send him another quick reminder so he knows not just to breeze through all of those fields. Now that we have our signing order, we have all of our contacts, their correct permissions, added our nice little private note. I'm going to scroll down. If you need to add any additional recipients, you can do that here. Just click add recipient, and then you can just select or type in their name. Super easy. Let's add a message. We could do a custom email message for each recipient, but we're not going to do that. Email subject is going to default to please DocuSign. I recommend that you leave that in there so that way your clients know that this is a DocuSign email and that they have something to do with it. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to update the property address, 1234 Main Street. And I'll do exclusive seller listing agreement and purchase and sale. I'll say, hi, Tony and Pepper. Please review and sign the listing agreement and purchase and sale for 1234 Main Street. Here we go. Our next step is going to be to click next, and that's going to take us into where we can review and the envelope editor, where we can go through, edit any of the signing fields and make sure everything's good to go. But any questions on the envelope so far, either adding documents, putting them in a specific order, adding our recipients, putting those in a specific signing order, or adding a message? All right. So now that we have everything set up in our envelope creator, let's click next. And then here, it's going to give us that pop-up that there are duplicate recipients found. Let's go ahead and merge those recipients. So that makes it super easy. So then we'd only have one Tony and one Pepper. Perfect. So now we're in the envelope editor. And there's a lot of information here. So let's walk through the layout of the editor before we actually go through any of the information. So up in the top left-hand corner, we have this nice little back arrow, which is save and close. So if you ever realize you've made a mistake or you need to make a change to something, you can always click back here. And I think DocuSign saves everything automatically like every 3 seconds. So more than likely, you're good to go. Below that, we have this drop-down menu with our client's name with a yellow circle. And then below that, you see we have these standard fields and all these different options for fields that we can add to our documents. And these are all highlighted yellow. If I click on this drop-down menu, you'll see that we have Pepper and myself included, and we each have a designated color. So if I click on Pepper, now all of these standard fields highlight to change to blue, and that's so I can more easily visually identify who is responsible for each field that's been assigned on these documents. So I know that any field that's purple is assigned to me. Just makes it really simple. So I'm going to select Tony. Here in the middle, we have a preview of the form. So as we're scrolling through here, we can just click through and double check any of these forms to make sure that we are good to go. And then over on the right-hand side, we have thumbnail versions of all the documents. So I can click here and I can just go through quick thumbnail versions. And then you'll see here on this last one, we have these colorful thumbnails. That's letting me know that there are signature fields assigned on this page. So we can just go through, double check, make sure that's good to go. And I can do that for all of these forms. So that is the envelope editor. Now, let me just scroll back up to the top here. And now let's just go through all these documents, just give everything a double check. Maybe we'll need to add a couple extra signature fields or whatnot. And then then we can send. So scrolling through here, it looks like for whatever reason, our deed booking page did not get checked. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to double click on that to fill that in. This is a new feature that we're now actually able to edit these text fields in the envelope versus having to go back into the Documents tab, which is a wonderful update. Just going through, double checking everything. Lots of explanation. As you start to spend more time in the GAR forms, you'll be really easy for you to identify the exact places that you need to check. Oh, we don't have another here, so I'm just going to uncheck that. Here's our stipulations. If you needed to add more, you can add another one here. Scrolling down, we have our signatures, our date signed, good to go. Same thing with myself here. Perfect. Now, this is really fun. So since I'm going to be the final signer, and this is our listing agreement, I can actually make this document binding when I sign. So to do that, let's do, alrighty. Okay, well, this is new. Okay, you know what? I'm just going to come over here and I'm just going to select myself. I'm going to go the traditional way. And I am going to add a text box right here. Just over that, and you notice it's purple. So I know that it's assigned to me. I'm going to right mouse click, copy, paste. I can just add another text box right there. It's going to format to fit. And then I'm also going to add the date signed field here. So that way it's going to automatically add this date signed. Now, when you add a text box or any field, you'll get this menu over here on the right-hand side. It's going to show you who the recipient is. So you could change it if you needed to, but if you accidentally selected the wrong person, you can easily change that. Ooh. And then below that, it's going to let you know if it's required or read only. If it's required, that means the color is going to be filled in purple, and that means the system is going to stop this person and they have to fill in the field before to let them go on to sign the next field. If you uncheck it, you'll notice that now that field is just outlined in purple, and that means that person can skip right over it. And if they want to fill it in, they can, but they don't have to. But for this, I want to make sure I actually do fill it in, so I'm going to make that required. All right, so then we're going to scroll down. We have our seller's property disclosure. Now we'll notice here that all of these fields are outlined in yellow. That means that they are assigned to Tony, but Tony's not required to fill them in. However, legally, Tony is required to fill them in. Tony's the only one that is responsible or allowed to fill them in. So rather than having the system just jump from signature field to required field to required field, we can make this text box right here for question 1A. What year was the main residential dwelling constructed? I can click on that. I can make that required. Now it's filled in yellow. And now the system is going to stop Tony on this disclosure and say, hey, Tony, you need to fill in the year this home was built. And it's going to be much easier for him to then scroll through the rest of the form and fill in all the fields. 9 times out of 10, when your client's like, hey, the seller's property disclosure didn't work, I didn't fill it out, like something's wrong, it's usually just that they did not realize that they had to go and fill in the information, and they were just skipping from required field to required field. So this is just a little workaround here. It's super easy. I only like to do this first question just because I'm not sure of the responses that are going to be needed for the remainder, but this is just an easy way to get the system to stop. So I'm just going to scroll through and make sure that all the fields are properly assigned to Tony. And again, just make sure that I'm not missing anything. Lots of scrolling. Perfect. Here we have Tony's signature, date signed, pepper, good to go. Scrolling down, we have our community association disclosure. And I like to do the same thing here. You can see all these text boxes are assigned to Tony, but none of them are required. So I like to click here for question 2A, click on that and make that required. And again, it's going to make it, Tony is going to have to stop. He's going to have to fill in this information, and it's going to be much easier for him to scroll through and fill in all of the correct fields. So scroll through here. Signatures, good to go. Perfect. Here we have our Rawls group disclosures. Good to go. Now we have our purchase and sale agreement. Again, just double checking all of these fields. We have our initial fields there. Perfect. Then we get down here, we have our seller's property disclosure. For whatever reason, I don't know why a community association disclosure isn't checked, so I'm just going to double click on that to select that. Again, we have our stipulations. And then scrolling down, we have our signature fields. And again, I mentioned earlier, I don't like sharing my client's contact information. So an easy workaround for me is just to black them out. And the way that I black out my client's email addresses is over here on the far left. I roll my mouse over the pen icon for pre-fill tools, click on that, and then I select line. And I just drag that line right here. Now that little red line is easy to read through, but over here I can select the color of it, and I can pick a color. I'm going to select black, click done, and then thickness, I'm going to make that a 10. And now that blocks out that entire email signature. I'm going to right mouse, well, I can just Command C, Command V, copy paste that, and then drag that over Pepper's email. Now, a black bar, I understand, is not the most visually beautiful thing to look at, but I think it does its job of protecting my clients from a potential not great co-op agent. And then scrolling down, we have my information. So we are good to go. Any questions so far on the envelope editor, going through double checking, adding any fields, making them required? All right. Now, the next step that we can do is we can actually preview what it's going to be like for our clients to receive these documents and sign them. So I'm going to click on preview up here in the top right-hand corner. And I'm going to select Tony from the dropdown because I want to see what it's going to be like for Tony. Up here at the top of the screen, it gives us a desktop view, a tablet view, and then also a mobile view. So if you have clients that are like, hey, we have these dinner reservations tonight at 6 o'clock that we've been wanting to go to this restaurant forever, but I know we have to get this offer in. I'm going to be like, you know what, clients, go to dinner, have a great time. I'm going to go home right now. I'm going to fill in these forms and I'm going to send them to you to sign, but I'll send you a text message. And that way you can pull up your email on your phone and you can click through and sign it on your phone. Now, you can see it's not going to be very easy to read, but they do have the ability to sign. And this just gives you a quick preview of what it's going to be like for them to sign on their phones. Now, obviously, I wouldn't recommend your clients filling in any of the disclosures on their phone, but anything for like a purchase and sale, something that needs to be done quickly, it is possible. When you're done with the preview, you can click the X up here in the top right-hand corner. And now let's send. And a newer feature is that if you wanted to send at a certain time, you can click send later. So if you're a night owl like myself and you want to go ahead and spend your evening filling out the forms, and then you want them to send at 8 o'clock in the morning, you can set that up to go later. I'm going to click cancel, and I'm just going to go ahead and click send. So let me pull up. All right, perfect. So it is sending. All right, so it lets me know I'm waiting for others. I'm going to go ahead and pull up my email here. I have to open up a couple different ones. Right, and let me open up my personal. Here we go. Perfect. So you can see here we have this email from Nicholas Core via DocuSign. Please DocuSign 1234 Main Street. I'm going to scroll down here. Here's my private message to Tony. Please be sure to fill in all the fields on the SPD and CAD, and then the note to both of them. So Tony's going to click on Review Documents. I'm going to click Agree to use electronic records and signatures. Tony's going to click Start, and then it's going to jump to that required field. This is going to ask him to adopt a signature, adopt and sign, and then it's going to jump to that next required field, which on the SPD is going to be which year was the dwelling constructed, 2008, and then it's going to be much easier for Tony to then go through here. He can type in so you can just click through here. I'm not going to go through all this, but I just want to show you. I want to do some of them so that way you can see what it's going to look like when Pepper goes through to review. All right, so I'm just going to scroll down to this last page here, and then let's just select a bunch of these little guys. Perfect. Scrolling down, and Tony's going to sign. Going to do the same thing here for the community association disclosure. So this is going to be a mandatory membership association. This is going to be, I'm just going to name this neighborhood HOA, and then info, and you can just, he can literally tab through and fill in all this info. And I'm just making this up. Tony can sign. Go sign, sign, initial, sign, and then Tony's going to click finish. Now it is very important that your clients click finish, because if they don't click finish and they just close out, the system is not going to recognize that they've completed their signing, and it will the page will not go on to the next client for signature. Do you want to save a copy of this? We'll click no thanks. And now Tony has received the you've finished signing. So he knows that he is good to go. Now it's going to be Pepper's turn to receive the email. So let me go over here and let me open up. Here we go. So this is going to be my personal email. So here is the email from DocuSign. Hi, Tony and Pepper, please review and sign. You'll notice that Pepper does not have a special message just for her. So she's going to click on review documents. We're going to go through the same process. Agree to use electronic records and signatures. Continue. Start. And then it just jumps to that required field. So Pepper is going to click sign. I'm going to ask her to confirm her signature, adopt and sign. Now I jumped all the way to the bottom of the seller's property disclosure, but I'm going to scroll to the top because I do want to show you what it looks like. So once Tony has filled this out, and then Pepper being the second signer, she has the ability to go through here and review all the information. And it's very important that you let your clients know, hey, please review this, because you are going to be legally responsible for any of the information that you disclose here in this form. So she just wants to give this a double check. And this is going to become really important when we get down to this last page here with all of these items that are going to remain in the home. So if they accidentally check something that is going to remain in the home that they anticipate that they wanted to take, they're going to be legally responsible for leaving that item or paying to have a new one. So it is very important that they have two sets of eyes on this. So Pepper's going to come down here. She's going to sign. Again, it's going to jump all the way to the bottom of the community association disclosure. So I'm just going to scroll up, double check and make sure all that information is correct. Again, very important that all of the information on the community association disclosure is correct, because if any of the fees or costs that are affiliated with joining the HOA are incorrect, the seller is going to be responsible for the difference. So if they forget to say that there is, like here, a transfer initiation fee, and they put 0 because they didn't know, and there's actually a $250 transfer fee, your sellers are going to be billed that $250 at closing, and they're not going to be pleased. So just let them know that it's very important that they double check that. Scrolling down, I'm going to click required, sign here, sign, sign, initial, sign. And now Pepper is finished. So Pepper can click the finish button. I'm going to ask if she wants to make an account. Click no, thank you. And now Pepper's received the you finish signing. So she is good to go. So I'm going to close out of this. And now I'm going to go into my, let me go back into my email. And now I've received an email letting me know that it's my turn to sign. So I'm going to click review documents. Perfect. Click continue, start, sign. Now remember, I added these fields here so I can make this binding. So I can put at 12 p.m. Go ahead and sign. And now I'm finished. I'm good to go. So I'm going to click finish. I do not want to log in. No thanks. And now I've received the you finish signing, so I'm good to go. So I can close this. Now, one of the benefits of using DocuSign is that once everybody has completed signing the documents, it's going to automatically send an email with all of the completed signed forms. So in the state of Georgia, we are required to send signed copies of all the forms to our clients. This just saves us that extra step, and they now have copies of all these signed forms. So they can leave them in their inbox. They're there, they're good to go. It's just really beneficial, especially if they have questions or they want to review anything, they have them in their inbox, and that's automatic. So you don't have to worry about that. So now that we have all of our documents signed, I'm going to click back into envelopes, into my DocuSign. I'm just going to refresh the page. So now it's going to show that our DocuSign envelope has been completed. You can click here. It's going to show you the exact time that everyone signed. Perfect. So I'm going to close out of that. Now to get to the actual signed documents, I'm going to click into the Documents tab, because as I mentioned earlier, anytime we have a completed signed document, that's going to default here into our Room Docs folder. But we want to put these in our specific folders. Super easy. Let's go ahead. Let's select all of our documents that are a part of our listing agreement. I'm going to select those. I'm going to click Move, Destination, Folder, and Current Room, Listing Agreement, Move. Perfect. And then my Purchase and Sale, I'm just going to select that, move it. Nope, incorrect. Folder and Current Room, and let's do Binding Contract and Move. You'll notice here we have a certification. This document is just has all the signatures and times. So that way, if there's any questions or confusion, that's here. And then we have our PDF versions of the Rawls Group disclosures, which you can move them into the listing agreement folder if you wanted to. I'm just going to leave them there for now. Now you'll notice we still have the blue form versions. These forms versions are still editable. So if you ever needed to go back and make a change, you can go back and edit this and then resend for signature. Any questions on sending for signature, signing, and receiving the documents here in DocuSign? All right. So now that we have all of our documents, our next step is to go back into Command and upload these documents for Lynn and Alita's compliance review. So I'm going to go back into Command. I'm going to refresh the page. All right. And now we can start adding documents. So up here, you can see we're in our listed folder. So we're going to add our listing documents here. It's going to give us the option to select documents from DocuSign or our computer. Today, we're going to select DocuSign. Then we have our folder, so I can select which folder I want these forms to come from. So because I've organized them, I'm going to select listing agreement. And then when I do that, I select the drop-down menu for a listing agreement. It's going to show me all the signed PDF versions of those forms in the listing agreement folder. So I can select the exclusive seller listing agreement -signed. Perfect. It's now uploaded. I can click on that to see a preview. So there's everything, all good to go. Scroll to the bottom, we have our signatures. Perfect. Next, we have our community association disclosure. And now you'll notice that the list is just a little bit shorter because every time you add a document in Command, it's going to remove that as an option from your drop-down menu here. So here's my community association disclosure, added that. Because we are not able to add one document, the same document, to multiple fields here in Command. Then we'll select the seller's property disclosure. Then we'll do Rawls Group affiliated marketing. And then our last one here is wire fraud. And now, once we have uploaded these documents, our next step is to click Submit to MC. And this is going to submit these documents to Lynn and Alita and let them know that, hey, we now have a listing or a binding contract. Can you please review these documents? And they are going to let us know if they are, with the status column over here, if they are approved or they're rejected. If they are rejected, they will, they will add a little note letting you know why they are rejected. So we have just gone through a ton of information this morning with DocuSign. We started in command in our opportunity. We selected residential as the form types that we're going to be needing. We clicked start a transaction to then create our DocuSign room. We confirm our nerd's ID. We then went through, updated all the details of the transaction, added our forms, filled them in, sent them for signature, went through the signing process for all three people, and now have uploaded them into command for compliance review. What questions do you have for me? Anything that I can clarify for you, anything I could show you again? There's a lot here, so I just want to make sure that you walk away feeling a lot more comfortable to use DocuSign. Any questions? Any? All right. Well, if you don't have any questions, thank you guys for joining me this morning. I appreciate it. As you are working in DocuSign, please do not hesitate to reach out. You can always give me a call or a text message and be like, hey, I'm having this quick issue. I'd rather spend 5 minutes on the phone and work through whatever technical problem you're having versus delaying, potentially sending an offer. And also, if you have a little bit more in-depth in time that you want to spend together, you can set up some one-on-one time with me. So in my email signature, there's a Calendly link that you can set up some one-on-one time, either on Zoom or in person, whichever works better for you. And then we can go through whatever it is that you have questions about. Have a great rest of your day, and I will hopefully speak with you all soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.